How are we doing, folks? Dave Brown back here with the New Populist. Thank you for joining me again. In this video, I want to go back in time a few weeks and talk about the Jeffrey Epstein case once again. Like I say in a lot of my videos, I like to wait for time to pass after something happens to really think about it and reflect on it before coming to a conclusion or just overreacting to the news at the time. I like to wait and let things marinate so I can really think about them. And with this Jeffrey Epstein case, I've given it a lot of thought. We all have. And I finally have arrived at a place where or not a place, but I think I know what's going on. I don't have proof of this. This is just conjecture, but I have a theory about what happened with the Jeffrey Epstein case. And this is not me trying to defend Donald Trump. This is me trying to make sense of what happened because when Trump came out on Truth Social and really attacked his supporters and said, if you follow this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, I don't want you to support me, and you're not really MAGA. When he said that on Truth Social, that was really the first time where I felt really uncomfortable with something Donald Trump says or had said. And he has said a lot of crazy things, and they never really bothered me. But this was the first time that it really did. Him saying, I don't want your support if you think there's anything really there with this Jeffrey Epstein case. So, what do I think is going on with the Epstein case, and why do I think Donald Trump responded that way? Well, let's go back to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings where he was nominated for the Supreme Court. And then this lady came out, Blasey Ford, saying that back when they were in high school, he jumped on her on a bed, held her down, and that apparently was traumatic enough to cause all sorts of problems in her life for the next several decades, and bad enough where Democrats said that he could not be on the Supreme Court. Now, there was no evidence. There were no other witnesses. All you had was her testimony. And her testimony alone almost sunk Brett Kavanaugh's chance of getting on the Supreme Court. And one of my least favorite senators, Republican Susan Collins from Maine, she gave a speech in the Senate saying why she would support Brett Kavanaugh, and she gave this long speech, and she was nervous. Her voice was shaking. She didn't really want to do it, but she finally said, okay, I'm going to support his nomination, but let me please explain why I'm going to do it. So she was very nervous, and his nomination was almost sunk. One person with no evidence making a claim going back over 30 years ago was enough to almost get Brett Kavanaugh. Now let's look at Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump Jr., Trump himself, a lot of people in Trump's orbit have been saying, we want to get these files released. And why would Trump and the people around him spend so much time talking about these files if those files would implicate Donald Trump himself? Why would they do that? That doesn't make sense to me. So 2020, Trump is running for re-election. Epstein at this point is dead. Trump doesn't have full control over the DOJ. We know the deep state's working against him, and he's focusing on the election. Now, Trump doesn't get reelected, and now Biden takes over, and the deep state has complete and full control over the DOJ. Now, if you're the deep state and you don't want this file released, what do? Well, the first thing, obviously, is try to get Trump out of office. And once he was out of office, they did everything they could to make sure he didn't return to office. However, their plans failed. He got the Republican nomination, and he once again was very close to becoming president. So, what do? You're the deep state. Trump's the Republican nominee. Joe Biden just crapped on himself during the debate. He's running against Kamala Harris, who is one of the weakest nominees ever for a president. So there's a good chance he could become president again. And your assassination attempt failed. What do to keep Trump from releasing these files and taking out a lot of people in the Democrat Party, in the media, elites? How do you prevent him from doing this? Well, in my opinion, there's a very, very easy way to do this. It's almost too obvious. You set up a scenario where he can't release the files. And how do you do this? Well, think about it. One lady was willing to come out, followed by actually a few more blatant liars with Brett Kavanaugh, and testify that Kavanaugh had done these things. Now, in these Epstein files, you have dozens of Jane Does, women who have said that they were trafficked by Epstein and had sex with Epstein and people on his client list, right? You have all these women, and their testimony is sealed away. Now, you're the Biden DOJ. You have control. You're worried Trump might become president again and release these files. What do? Here's what you do. You go to one of these Jane Does, and there's plenty of them, and you say, hey, you testified that you did this with this person here and that person there. Well, what about Donald Trump? Did he do something with you? Wink, wink, wink. And you get one of these Jane Does, because there's many of them, so you have a lot to pick from, and just get one of them to testify falsely that, yes, she too had sex with Donald Trump. And you take care of her through behind the scenes and quietly, get her a job, maybe get a car. There's ways to get things to people without tracing back to a government lawyer per se, right? So you get one Jane Doe, that's all it takes, one, to claim that she had sex with Donald Trump, and that's all you need. So what happens? Trump gets elected. You have Pam Bondi. She goes to the DOJ. She gets this nice Epstein file. He goes through it. Wait a second. Page 671, Jane Doe 19 says, in 2005, summertime, she had sex with Donald Trump. Huh. Now she calls up the president and say, hey, Mr. President, your name's in the file, not as a witness or anything, but as a somebody who actually committed a crime. Or, of course, being the allegation here. And Trump goes, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't do anything. Well, Mr. President, page 671, Jane Doe 19 says you did. Now you're Trump. You just got elected. In your first term, Russiagate pretty much destroyed the first 2 years of your presidency and really prevented you from doing a lot of things. And now here you are, you're finally back. They tried to shoot you twice. They tried to throw you in jail. You finally get back. It's February, March, and you're ready to get rolling. And then you get this phone call. Hey, your name's in there. And you're like, what the hell? What the heck is this crap? And then he realizes, if I release this file, all of it, Yes, I'm going to take down a lot of people, but I take myself down as well. How many Republicans in the House and the Senate would love to turn on Donald Trump if they had the chance? And I would say at least a third, maybe a half of them. A lot of those Republicans in Congress do not like Donald Trump. They pretend to because his base is so strong, so they go along with it and they ride his coattails. But given an excuse, a good excuse, they would turn on him. They would impeach him and remove him from office. So Brett Kavanaugh almost got blown out because one lady testified that he jumped on her in a bed 30 years ago. What would happen if this file came out and there was ostensibly a credible claim that Donald Trump did have sex with a minor that was under the control of Jeffrey Epstein? What would happen? Well, within a few weeks, probably a few days, they would file articles of impeachment in the House. He'd be impeached. It would go to the Senate, and he would be gone, removed from office by the Senate. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not the allegation is true. And unfortunately, it may be impossible to prove yourself innocent. But that's not the issue here. Just the allegation being credible would be enough to sink his presidency and get him removed from office. So it's my theory that the DOJ, the deep state, in preparation for the possibility that Donald Trump could become president once again, put that booby trap within the Epstein file so that when he became president, he couldn't release it without destroying himself. That's what I think happened. And that's why I think Trump freaked out and was irrationally angry and was calling it a hoax. He wasn't calling Epstein a hoax. He was calling what was in the file that he knew was put there by the deep state, this false information. He knew that was a hoax. And that is what I think he was actually reacting to and why he was so angry and calling it a hoax. That is my theory. And you're really in a bad position if you're him. Release it and destroy yourself and your presidency, or not release it and have your own supporters turn on you and suspect you of being guilty. What do? You're screwed either way, and that is the point here. Yes, I make fun of the deep state for being a bunch of clowns and they do a lot of stupid things, but they're not stupid all the time. And when it comes to covering their ass, protecting themselves and the elite, they are top notch. And what I describe here would be so easy to do. So easy. Why wouldn't they do that? Just get one Jane Doe to say he did it too. You got dozens of them to pick from. At least one will do it. And it's and you tell her, hey, it'll never be released, so you don't have to testify in front of a camera in public, and and be judged by the entire country. No one will ever know your name. Just say it here, and then the file will be sealed, and you can go away, and we'll take care of you. It would be so freaking easy. So that is what I think possibly happened with this Jeffrey Epstein case. The deep state laying this booby trap to prevent Donald Trump from releasing it. That's what I think may have happened. Do I know for sure? No. Perhaps that's not the case. Maybe he is guilty of something, and that's the point. We just don't know. So what do you do now if you're us? What do we do with Trump? I don't know. You can sort of see with Trump when he talks about certain things and does certain stuff. When he's not really behind it, he doesn't have that same conviction. And so I know there's so many things going on behind the scenes, so many games being played, especially with Israel. And I think he's bumbling and just, doing his best to navigate it the best he can and try to do some good. I think oftentimes we have this idea that somebody can become president and make all these sweeping changes, and all the opposition, for some reason, is just going to go away and let that person make those changes. That's not how our system works. We are a $5-6 trillion a year corporation, and one man doesn't walk in and just do whatever the hell he wants and, foil the plans of all the elites. That's not how it works. That's not how it works in any system. Even when we have monarchs where the kings have, absolute power, what happens to that person if he pisses off enough people who are powerful? Well, he gets killed. He gets stabbed by somebody. He gets poisoned. You got to play the game to a certain extent. And I think Trump, just like his first term, is finding out in his second term, the game continues, and he can only do so much, and he has to play the game whether he likes to or not. That, unfortunately, is the reality. Well, that is it for now. If you are new to my channel, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.